Hi guys, Jay Smith here, down at Bury Golf Range in Suffolk, and I've got the one length irons from Cobra to review, thanks to a subscriber for giving me them to have a bit of a play with. There's not many of those sets around, so be interesting to see how they work. Now I've got the 5 all the way down to gap wedge. Now these are all 7-iron lengths. So this little one here being a 7-iron, it's the Cobra F7 single length, and it's a strange head because it looks like on a certain amount of them, I think it's from the, is it from the 8-iron? Let's have a look. Yeah, from the 8-iron down, they seem to be like proper cavity backs, big undercut cavity. And then when you go to like the 7-iron, which I've got here, yeah, same as the rest, the undercut is filled in. They're like a little resin thing, or don't know what it is, a little bit of plastic. Anyway, one length irons, what they've done, as I said, all of them are 7-iron length. How Cobra have tried to get around the idea, obviously, of the lack of length in the, say, the 5 and the 6, they've added weight to the heads. So all the heads have got different weights. The 7-irons are standard 7-iron head, standard 7-iron shaft length, etc. When it goes to the 6-iron, obviously there's not quite that little bit of shaft that's missing, so they add a little bit of weight to the head, and obviously when they're adding weight to the head, they're put it in areas they can try and increase a little bit of launch. Because one thing which has been seen so far when it comes to one length irons is that when you go into the longer irons, even though they're not longer really, the same length, longer, yeah, you know what I mean, they've got all the weight over at the back and at the sort of, well, it seems like it's collected at the toe end, but it's definitely at the bottom anyway, to try and increase a little bit of launch, because they do have a tendency to launch a little bit low. The gap wedge is like a bladed option, so there's no big undercut cavity on the gap wedge. It looks massive. So, I mean, I've got, where is it? Get over here, that'll work. Yeah, if I put this down by the ball, it looks huge. It looks like someone's got a little bit of humour to them, because they've got like a lofted head and then just found a random long shaft and gone, oh, I'll put that in there and that'll look funny. And it does, it looks strange, it looks very, very long. I mean, the heads themselves actually look quite nice. They're not that chunky. Yes, they are a bit chunky, they're game improvement. They do a forged version as well. This isn't the forged version. This is what most people are going to be using game improvement for, trying to be consistent. The idea of one length irons is that you set up to the ball exactly the same distance every single time. There's no difference in lie angles, etc. So you just stand to the ball the same every single time. Now there might be a little bit of ball position and move, and just to try and obviously add a little bit of launch. So obviously with the 4-iron, etc., you want to try and get that ball launching a bit more, so you have it slightly forward in the stance. You can play it wherever you want really, but gap wedge tends to go a little bit further back. So right, this gap wedge 50 degrees, and then it goes 45-degree pitching wedge, and these are strong lofts, guys, so they will go further. I've got GC2 on the 4. These are range balls, so they're not going to go as far as normal. We're going to go on GC2 later on with my Vice Pro gaming ball and see actually how these work. GC2 is on. Yes, there we go. Right, get target. This looks massive. I can't get over how long this looks, but I've got to think the gap wedge is a gap wedge is a gap wedge. And that is the problem. Now this is the first hit I've had with this. That was 7 yards offline. Was not great at all. Wasn't a very nice hit. I'm gonna have to think about getting used to the length of these, because it does look a little bit weird. So let's do that again, and I've got to reprogram my brain into thinking, yeah, it's a gap wedge, but with a 7-iron shaft. Better. Yeah, 0.9. There you go, 0.9 off target. So it's going to take a little bit of getting used to. I mean, she's spinning pretty well. She's up at 10.2. She didn't really go that high, but I'm trying to get used to strike at the moment, as in the case it's so long. when I look at the 5-iron, I don't think I've got really any issue whatsoever when it comes to the length of that, because I quite like the idea of the shorter shaft. Gets you a little bit closer to work. But with the gap wedge, let's hit one more of these. Let's see if I can get an absolutely flush shot. Not too bad at all. What's that? 4 yards offline. That's going up. That's a bit better height, right? Because one thing I did say, these go up quite high. I don't know. I mean, how high did that go off this? That went up at 25 peak height, 24.5 peak height in yards. Right. Let's go to. Let's do 7-iron. Shall we do 7-iron? Yeah, let's do 7-iron. So this is normal now. So this will be no different before. So we'll keep the data the same. We'll just sift through it. So now this looks exactly like a 7-iron should do. Looks no different. It's a bit chunky on the top line, etc. But to be fair, it looks okay. Let's hit this one out there. There you go. Maybe a fraction left. Yeah, just a fraction left. That's carrying up at 160. 25.5 on the peak height in yards. So it's not far. It's a little bit short on height. With a range ball, okay, range ball spins more, launches lower, so it's not going to be a true indication of how a real ball works. But what we'll do is we'll use a real ball later on, so we can get into the nitty gritty. But this is exactly the same as a 7-iron, so it's no different to hitting any other general 7-iron out there. Feels nice. To be fair, they all feel nice. It's not an issue really of what was that? Oh, did I lose connection? Yes, I did. That's good, isn't it? But that was fractionally right. That was 0.4 left, and I had 4 degrees of tilt axis to the right. 157 yards, so that one was 160. So to be fair, it's not too far off. It's not too far off at all. What should we do? Should we go 5-iron next? So we're saying that basically the gap wedge and the 7-iron actually go the same height, which is interesting. This is now 5-iron, yet this feels short. This is with a 7-iron shaft, so this does feel tiny. I've got no issue with this whatsoever. But it'd be interesting to see if this has an impact on how high it goes, because there is this, well, it's been reported so far that these 1-length irons don't quite go as high. And it'd be interesting to see if I was to compare them up against my set to see. These are crank lofts, remember. 5-iron time. Yeah, that's out there. 23.2, so a couple of yards shorter on that one. 172. These are range balls, so they're not going to start. Well, now they're going to start to reduce in distance now, because obviously we're with wedges, etc. Then the short shots, they're fairly close to being like for like with real balls. But now you're starting to get a little bit more speed into it. That's when they start crying a bit more. What was that? That was 3.4 yards offline and 23.2 in peak height. All right, hit another one. Felt okay though. Slightly out the bottom. Very slightly out the bottom, that one. 2 yards difference when it comes to total carry. 1 left, and that was 19.8. Yeah, so that was the difference. There was 2 degrees difference in vertical launch because I hit it slightly out the bottom. There's only 2 yards in it, and also 3 yards in peak height. So, I mean, this is like my normal 4. I think it's 5-iron, something around about 24 degrees, if memory serves. So it is strong. It is definitely strong. But it feels nice. Will I say I can hit it any better because it's shorter? I'm not sure. Let's see. Now these are having the tendency to fade off today, and I'll tell you the reason why. 173. So again, what was it? 172, 170, 173, all very, very similar. 7 yards right. What was peak height? 23.5. So the first one was 23.2. Hit well. The next one was 19.8 because I thinned it very, very slightly, hit a groove low, and the next one hit again the same 23.5. So you're looking at it's a couple of yards less than the gap wedge and also the 7-iron. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit these with my Game Ball Vice Pro on GC2 and just actually see what happens when you compare them up against real ball conditions rather than the range ball. Right, as always, numbers time for the Cobra F7 or 1 length irons. Now, I've hit, I think 6 or so shots with each on my Vice Pro using GC2. I'm having a tendency, I'm fighting it a little bit because obviously these aren't my exact specs at all. One thing I would have liked was the lie angles a little bit more upright than normal because I do have upright lies and they're standard. So even though my face control is pretty good going at target, because obviously the loft with the lie is not facing the target, they have a tendency to fade off a little. With the gap wedge, 97 miles an hour, launching at 27.1, blah blah blah, 9,236 RPM, spinning okay for a 50. I've got a 52 which spins give or take around that, so it spins quite well for the club that it is. 32 peak height. I wouldn't say it's massively high. But it is up there. With that spin, it will stop. Obviously, with the 51.6 descent angle as well, that will stop the other side. So it's averaging 121. What's interesting with this gap wedge is 50 degrees. My pitching wedge at 47 carries at 123 on average. This is carrying at 121, and it has gone up to 124. It's only the odd one that dropped down to 118, 119 with a slight misstrike that you can see it's dropped the figures down. So it's basically the same as my pitching wedge, but bear in mind these things are a little bit stronger. Go at the pitching wedge, 107, so we've got a decent gap in there. We've got 97, 107, we've got 10 miles an hour difference. So you'd say I would like to see a slight smaller difference. 25.8, so it's the launch obviously coming down by a degree of 1.3 degrees. Little tiny baby draw, 8.1. Now it's starting to spin a little bit lower. I'm not too keen on it starting to spin too low. 37 peak height, 52.2 descent angle. It's still descending steep enough that it will stop even with the slightly lower spin numbers. But carry distance is 139 from a pitching wedge. That's a long way. I had one carried up at 141. Starting to scare me a little bit then, because I went to the 9 iron. I'm thinking, well, how far are these things going to go? 110 miles now, so there's only 3 mile an hour jump. So I don't. When it comes to gap-ins with these, they've tried to do as best they can by changing the weights on the heads. But I'm finding that the gappings are getting a little bit erratic. 24.2, so the loft obviously coming down again. The initial launch, a little tiny pull draw on this one. 6.9 spin, so again dropping down now. Remember, this is a 9 iron, so I'd like to see a 9 iron spin around about the 8,000s and something. This is now down at 6.9, so it's getting a little bit low on the spin. 36.6 in yards, so it's still going up there. And then 51 degrees descent angle. These are now starting to stop on the green, hitting at the green, through descent angle rather than spin. Carrying 148. I had one up there at 150. Now, bear in mind, 148, that's my 8 iron. So we're seeing that one club jump to what I'm normally used to. Let's go 8 iron, 113. So again, we're only 3 miles an hour faster. So it's now getting more consistent again. 21.5, we're now dropping quite a bit when it comes to the launch. Tiny little draw. 5.7 spin. This is getting low now. This is getting to what I normally hit with my 6 iron, give or take. 34.1, still there again in peak height in yards, so it's not overly high or low. It's up there. But bear in mind, we are talking about 8 iron. In real life, that'd probably be sort of like my 7 iron, but yeah. 48.5 in descent angle, so again, it is anything around about the 45 degree mark with any half decent amount of spin will stop on the green. This 158, that is again is my 7 iron, so you can see there's that little jump, and I've got 2.8 on the offline. Yeah, that's me, don't worry about that. Why did I have on there? What was my consistency like? Yeah, I had one on there that I fatted very slightly. Yeah, dropped to 107 on ball speed. So one thing I did find when I was hitting these, that they're very sensitive to strike. Now, I have hit a few on this when I was actually doing the test. I think I've got one on the next one, the 7 iron. Yeah, here we go. Average of 120, but I had two on there at 114 and 112, bearing the rest of them like 120 to 126. So that's quite a big jump off. And it's gone from, like, my longest on the 7-iron is 185. 185 for a 7. I mean, I don't hit my 6 anywhere near. I mean, 185 is further than my 5-iron. So, but then you can see it goes down at 161 when I hit it slightly off the toe. And that's what I found with these Cobra clubs. They do seem to be quite particular on strike. Now, these are game improvement clubs, remember, so they should be helpful. Now, they felt nice. For a non-forged set, they felt quite nice. I'm not overly keen on the longer clubs for like the gap wedge and pitching wedge, etc. I like the idea of the 5 and 6 being shorter. Do like that idea. But I'm starting to get some seriously weird variations in my distance just from a tiny strike difference. 6-iron, or my 5, 125. So there is a difference there, but on average, if you were to look at the difference between the 6-iron and the 7-iron, I've got as many up there. I've only got 1 and 127 for the 6. So this is starting to get launched now, 15.2, tiny little push, 4.5 spin. I mean, this is just tiny amounts of spin. 30 peak height, that's getting about, I want to go a bit higher than that, but it's give or take there, 43 degrees descent with 185. The problem is with that descent angle at 43, with 4.5 spin, I cannot control that the other side. So that's going to be carrying on average 185 there, but it's when it's going to be hitting the green, that's not going to be stopping anywhere near that. That's going to be rolling on a little bit. And it gets worse when I get into the 5-iron, because, I mean, I hit a few shots on the 5-iron there because I've really felt the 5-iron was quite particular on how you strike it. As you can see there, I hit, there's a shot on here, third one down, 130 miles an hour, 15.3, 1.7, 5.7, blah, blah, blah. Right, that I hit with my own club, with my own 4-iron, because they're very, very similar lofts. Because I was hitting this, and I'm getting such strange, weird, and wonderful. So I hit one there, 204 yards. Well, I absolutely middled it. And it went 204 yards carry. Now, for me, that is mental from a 5-iron. So I thought to myself, well, that's quite what I do with my 4. But so I thought, well, all these figures that I'm getting, if I take that one out, my club, 126 ball speed, 13.9 launch, little baby draw, 3.627 speed, 3.6 from a 5-iron, but it's a 4-iron. So I suppose when you look at it like that, it's not too bad. 26.9 peak height, that's what I'm starting to worry about. It's not getting up high now, and that's what I don't like. 39.1 descent angle, it is not functional. Not with a 3.6 spin. That has got no chance whatsoever of stopping the other end. If that goes into green, I can tell you where that's going, the other side of it. 192 average carry, and then a 1.8, that's me, don't worry about it, equal lefts and rights. My information I put there, I got my 4-iron, which is basically the same loft, 130 miles an hour, 15.3, so I'm already a degree and a half slightly higher on launch. I pulled it very, very slightly, 3.7 of spin, so it's about the same what I would expect for my 4-iron. 3.7, yep, so 4,000 4-iron. 32.1 in peak height, so it's now getting up high. I mean, 32.1, that is as high as, give or take, the 7 to 6-iron, and I'm hitting my 4. That carried 201, but at a 45 degree descent angle. Remember what I was saying about a 45 degree descent angle? If it's got any decent amount of spin on it, it's got a chance of stopping. That has a chance of stopping. When that's coming out at 39.1, with the 5-iron, or stroke 4-iron, yeah, you cannot control that the other side. My issue with these clubs is the fact that, one, you've got ranging from 204 yards down to 181 because of tiny strike. I mean, I was towing these very, very slightly. I think it's because of the short shaft. As I started to get the shorter shaft, I started to tow the longer irons, even though they're not longer, and I struggled with slight heel strikes with the shorter, longer clubs. But bearing in mind, these are for an idea to try and make golfers more consistent, whether it would be trying to get their setup more consistent so they don't have variations like that. It works very, very well. I felt exactly the same all the way through. I changed my ball position marginally, but not a lot. But it just concerns me when you get up into the longer clubs. I don't mind the flights of the, like the gap wedge and the pitching wedge and 9-iron. They are a little bit off, but I don't mind them. My issue more than anything else is just the longer clubs. They're just too strike sensitive to be able to, for me, functionally use, and they're just too strong. They don't spin the ball enough, they don't launch it high enough, they don't descend into the green steep enough. You can kind of see where I'm going with it. Would I have them? No, I wouldn't. Would I say for a starter or a beginner or someone who's looking for a bit more consistency to try them? By all means, give them a go. You're not going to have, if you can find somewhere to give these a go, that's the hardest bit, but if you can, definitely give them a go. Definitely worth trying out, see if it does make you a little bit more consistent. Yeah, it's been a bit more kind of data driven, but when it comes to on-course stuff, there is a market for it. Yes, there is. But the on-course stuff, basically when you do on-course stuff, you're testing what the ball does when it reacts with the ground. If you do different comparisons with clubs and they both produce different results, yes, on the golf course they might produce different results again, but on par, if you have a big enough data set, one carries, if a driver carries 30 yards further than the other one, over a long enough period of time, the one that carries 30 yards further is still going to be longer than the shorter one. So there is a point for having closed data. There's also a point of having on-course stuff as well. So hope you liked the video. If you did, click the like button below and also click the subscribe button if you can. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon.